Well, on today's podcast, we help you plan and execute a successful live event with live event coordinator Amber Bowling.
Welcome to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sands. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again this week. We've got a little bit different kind of show for you than our normal podcast. Normally, we bring on a member of our Flip Your Life community, and we help them with some of their questions they have about online business and give them a live consulting call on the air. But we've been getting a lot of feedback and questions lately about live events. Specifically, how do you host your own live event? I know that this can be a great compliment for many people in their online business to create these live meetups and these live events. So we thought we would bring on an expert today.
And we don't always bring on experts.
No, we don't. We do not bring on self-proclaimed gurus, but we know this person is an expert because this is actually our live event coordinator, Amber Bowling. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Amber is also my cousin. So this is a family thing, y'all. And if you're blood related, you get to be on the Flip Lifestyle Podcast for free. I'm just saying. That's right. That's right.
But just a little disclaimer, we do hire her, so we actually have a paid relationship
Yes, we have a paid relationship with her.
And it works out really well. So we wanted to bring her on today and just answer some of your questions about live events and how they can help you to grow your online business.
So Amber, before we get started, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, about your background and your expertise in hosting live events.
Sure. So I have been an event planner for about 12 years. I am based out of Lexington, Kentucky, but plan events all over the country. My experience started out in more of the social, wedding, corporate kind of nonprofit, and these live events have been something that I've kind of dug into here in just the last little bit, and it is an exciting thing. It's been a great partnership for us to kind of delve into this and actually work with some folks in your community. So it's been a great thing.
Yeah, you've done weddings, you do things for colleges, alumni clubs, entrepreneurs, and online business. And it's just fascinating to me as we've gotten more into this live event world to see how many organizations really do rely on live interactions with their clients to make things happen.
And how many different types there are. Like, there are so many different types of events that you can do.
Yeah, it almost works in it works for any business, don't you think?
It does. It does. Especially in like the online communities. I mean, there's definitely value to that. And there is a sense of community in the online forums, but there's nothing like getting people around a table, live interaction with people to just bring more value to the dynamic. So
sure. We were talking a little bit like off air about like why we host live events, and like, you know, there is a monetary component. You can make really good money on selling tickets depending on what the event is and what you're doing. Some live events cost a lot of money to go to. We've seen live events that cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. We actually went to one time that was almost like $4,000 a ticket.
But then they're also very expensive to put on. You know, like, we don't make tons of money off live events. For us, it's more about the interaction, getting to know our community, like having a face-to-face interaction with them, and just sort of cementing that relationship for a really long time.
And we also find in the entrepreneurial community, a lot of times the online business, the online forums can take you a long way, but there's always peaks or moments in anyone's business where they need something to take them over the edge and get to that next level and reset the process. And we found that live events, the best thing to use them for is you take a small group of people who are really close to making something major happen and then help them push them over the edge at the live event to the next level, because you get so juiced up at a live event, you get so excited that it builds a lot of momentum going forward. And I think the biggest thing that you brought to our live events for sure is just the fun. That's what was awesome about adding you to the team in our live events, is the fun aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yes, you are all about the fun.
Yeah, we like ours to truly be an event. It's not just like something that you go to for business and you leave and you're just like, whatever. Like, we like it to actually be something that you think about for a long time after. It's not just that day. Like, it kind of continues on because it was such a cool experience for everybody to just experience together.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think that's one of the things that differentiates me as an event planner. And that's just what I'm passionate about, is making it an experience, not just an event where you go to a conference room and, you want people to leave with that wow. And so how do you do that? It's those little details. It's hospitality. It's making people feel comfortable. And we kind of do that with you all, and just little touches in the food and, the welcome bags and the swag and all that kind of fun stuff. You really want to personalize things to where it's not just another cookie cutter event. And I think that's something that we've tweaked with you all and gotten to a really good combination of things to where people leave and it is an experience. It's not just an event that they attended. It's something that they will carry with them and take those action steps, and they leave empowered to take those next steps.
Yeah, I love it too, because that's one of the main reasons we do live events too, is not only to get people to that next level, but also too because those little touches that set you apart online. There's a lot of people that teach what we teach. There's a lot of people that do what other people do, but that little thing when they leave and say, wow, that's Shane and Jocelyn. Like, I love at our last live event, the biggest comments we got is that the goodies were in KFC mashed potato bowls. And like
styrofoam bowls.
And that was totally Amber did that, by the way. We had this like little bitty bourbon bottle and these little bitty things, all these little candies and stuff. And it was so funny though.
People will remember that.
And they will. And they never forget. People send us pictures and we're like, I took home my KFC bowl. That sounds so funny to say that. But like the point is just going to that event and that one little trigger, that one little thing that identifies them with our brand in their life, that helps you retain customers. That helps people stay a part of your community. And
when they know you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's more personal.
All right. So we talked about why people would want to have a live event and like the benefits for what we do for online business. Let's sort of get into the more of the nuts and bolts of hosting a live event. When we started hosting live events, I think it was back in was it 2014 maybe that we started? I think it was. Back. So we really didn't know what we were doing. The good thing was that I had a little bit of an experience when I used to work in the corporate world of doing a little bit of event planning. Nothing really like this, but I mean, I'd had a little bit of experience of doing some sales trainings and things like that.
We basically just wanted to see if we could pull it off. I was like, let's just do a live event. And we're like, where? California. Why not? Let's go. And we just started.
Yeah. And so, I mean, most people who listen to this podcast frequently, they know that we're just sort of jump in feet first kind of people. So we just sort of make things happen. And especially Shane, he's just like, let's do it and sell it and just see what happens. I'm like, okay.
We sold the tickets before we had the venue. We just kind of thought up all the ideas. We literally just were like, I don't even know what to charge.
Yeah. And so we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But so for me, it was really hard to plan the thing because first of all, I was in San Diego, so we had to talk to people in San Diego. I had never even been there before in my life, so I'm just totally blind trying to find out information, trying to find a venue and talking to people, like negotiating prices. That's something that I had never done before, and like I really didn't know what I was doing, obviously, because I really didn't do a good job of doing it. Planning the menu, like getting everything together, it's a lot of work. So I think one of the questions that people have straight off is like, how do you know what to charge for a live event? So maybe you could talk about that just a little bit.
Because that's going to really determine what your live event is going to look like, I would say, wouldn't you think?
And don't just guess like we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles and maybe even what is holding some people back just jumping in and doing a live event, unlike you, Shane, who just went for it. But
it all worked out. But
yeah, it did. It worked out great. But I think people, they don't really know what to charge. And I think that's true. But in anybody that has a services kind of driven business is what is your value? What is the maximum that I can charge without looking ridiculous? So I think, first of all, you have to set what your goals are. What is it that you're looking to achieve? Is it that you are wanting to make money from this event? Are you wanting to just break even? Or do you just want to have enough to cover your travel? Or is it you really don't care how much money you make, or if you lose money, you just really want to get your community together and grow the community and add value to the community? So I think that's the first question that you have to start with. And then, determining what your budget is overall. There's two different approaches to this. Some people will say, I have X amount of dollars. This is what we have to work with. And then my job is to plug in the numbers and work my magic to get the best, most wow event for those dollars. Some people say, I want to go to San Diego, Chicago, Boston, but keep in mind that the markets are different in every city. I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't know how much it's going to cost. And so then you can kind of look at that and say, okay, this is going to be, X amount, and then go from there. So there's kind of two different approaches to it. But I think the biggest question that you have to start with is, what is your goal? What is your end goal?
Right. And, there's probably a lot of people listening that think, well, why would you want to break even from a live event? Well, I'll tell you, it's really expensive to put on a live event. I mean, even if you just consider your travel, your hotel, the food, the venue, like all of those things really add up.
Even if you just do it in your town, you still have to rent a venue, get the food, all that stuff. And also, too, I think this is the short-sightedness we're talking about of most entrepreneurs. What I find most beginners especially don't understand is they don't understand cost of doing business. They don't understand a cost-benefit analysis, and they don't understand investment with a later return. Everybody wants to sell their thing and make money now. Oh, I'll have a live event and I'll make 10 grand. Yeah, I've got money now. But no, if you get 20 people from your community to your live event and you're charging those people $50 a month and they stay because of that live event another 2 years, well, look at the lifetime value of that customer. And yeah, you broke even on the live event, but you made an investment to get those people to the next level and stay with you as a customer moving forward. So you actually made a ton of money off of having that live event. It just didn't happen like immediately.
And so for us, I mean, that's typically our goal. Like, we don't go into it expecting to make millions of dollars off live events. I mean, that would be great. But really, by the time that we count all of our costs in, the cost of traveling, I mean, we do come out ahead, obviously, because you don't want to end up in the red. But if we
break even, we're fine.
Yeah, I mean,
ours,
breaking even is okay with us because we know that helps out that relationship, and also we have super solid testimonials moving forward.
And like, there's some events out there, like the bigger events, like the more conference events. Those are more for making money. Wouldn't you say?
I think that's a good starting point is breaking even, because you're going to get your systems in place like we've done. We've kind of streamlined your all's live event. We know what the plan is. We know where we're going. And so we can be very cost effective in that, and to where you all are able to make money at this point. But I think, for anybody that's just starting out, I personally think that breaking even, while that sounds kind of crazy, I think that's a good goal.
That's actually a good thing for all business is if you can get to the point where you can break even, you can become more efficient, scale, and then make money. People see us, and I think that's why we get so many questions about having live events. They see us hold them all the time. And they're like, oh, it looks so easy. I bet you're making a killing off this. And it's like, no, we've got a process. And it took us 2 years of doing live events to figure them out, to make them profitable enough to have them. But also, we really just want to be close to break even and really serve our people, really get them results and take them to the next level. And the lifetime value of that customer will even out the profit later on, basically. Now, if we were going to host a conference where we said, hey, let's rent a place in Atlanta, get 300 people. Now, that would probably be some kind of profit thing where you would try to say, okay, we're going to charge this much a ticket. We'll bring in this many speakers, and we're trying to make a 40% profit on this event. But that's a different kind of event than what we're saying for most businesses is bring in 10 to 20 of your customers, give them a result, and move forward.
Yeah, it takes time to plan an event. I mean, there's a lot of time and details and logistics that are involved. So I think one thing that you all started out planning your own events, but then quickly realized, hey guys, this is something we need to outsource. I think it's kind of a misconception in terms of hiring an event planner, like, oh, that's extra money that I have to spend. But really, if you decide to go that route, an event planner can save you money in the end.
Sure.
Because that's something that we live and breathe events every single day. So we know how to negotiate the best rate with a venue, caterer, these excursion type events that we do. And it's all of those little details that just take up time, and time is money.
We always look at it like, I can pay this person this much per hour. Can I make more than that in my hour not doing it? That's how we look at every task in our business. And any task where we can be like, okay, we can pay this person $25 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever. Can we go make $200 an hour by doing consulting calls or by getting new members or things like that? And if the answer is yes, it becomes a no-brainer whether or not to hire someone to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it too. I think that's a great way.
All right, so let's talk about the very specific things. So what are like the 4 or 5 things that a good quality live event, 10 to 20 people, what's the checklist of things you've got to do at the live event? If you didn't know what we were going to do at our live events, what would you tell us? Hey, a live event needs to do X, Y, and Z over this day long period if it's going to be successful?
Well, I think, obviously the venue and the setting is very important. So cost budget is going to determine a lot of that. I mean, there are some great kind of resources, and it depends city by city. If you look at like universities or library spaces or that kind of thing, if you're looking for like kind of a no cost venue, you could look at there. But if you're wanting to do a kind of wow factor and having a place that people remember, I mean, when you all were in Tampa, we held your event at the aquarium. So that's something that people are going to remember. Mm-hmm. So I think picking kind of a unique venue, no offense to hotels, but I'm not big on hotel space. I think that's just kind of
blah.
It just screams corporate.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not going to be that wow experience. So I think finding a venue is critical and one that's going to work for your budget. And certainly an event planner can help you with that, especially if you're going outside of your hometown. I think food is really important. Food is expensive for catered services. And I think people try to maybe take a less expensive route thinking that they're going to save money. But people remember food. People definitely remember if you have bad food. So I think that's another critical one is you might have an awesome venue, but if you don't have food and like just that hospitality that you're taking care of people. You want people to be comfortable because if they're not, they're going to remember that too. And then I think focusing on your content and what the needs of your audience is at that event. And I think you all do a good job of networking with folks very specific that are attending the event prior to. So you're able to kind of address their questions and needs that are on site. And then there's just obviously other logistics in terms of live events that people need to think about that they may not necessarily have at the top of their radar, but like parking and AV and transportation. And is there a national conference in town that week that you're not going to be able to get hotel rooms? Just those kinds of things that you kind of have to think through the whole process. I mean, it's not just, okay, I've got a venue, check that off. There's just a lot of those other little details that go into it that I think, if you don't have a lot of experience doing in it, you might not necessarily think of those things off the top of your head. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of people recognize that that's not their skill set and that they're not going to be able to effectively complete this process. For me, I mean, this was even hard for me, and my mind does work this way. Like, I think 3,000 steps ahead all the time, but like most people don't.
And you used to plan trade shows and stuff. Like, you used to plan similar type events.
I had some experience doing it, and it was difficult for me. It took a lot of time.
Yeah, I totally agree with all those points you just made. What gets so overwhelming about running a live event is all of the logistics and all of the things like add up over. It's like death by a thousand cuts. Whenever we're planning our live event, that's what it feels like to me, because it's like there's things to do. Like you have to figure out who is the on-site person you got to talk to, and what if they're not there that day or they're off, and then like who are the people that will actually be in the room serving you food and coffee and drinks and all those things. And then you have other things that you have to manage. We're saying like, you can't just show up and your people be there and, oh, we're at a live event. Everyone's friends, like people go into it, they're strangers. And even if they talk online, they don't really know each other. And it's important, like 2 weeks out, I always try to break the ice with our people. We put them in a Facebook group. I do icebreakers in the Facebook group, like show a picture of your family, tell us about your kids, tell us about your business. I'm constantly working to try to build that familiarity between the attendees and us so that when we walk in the room for breakfast, which is amazing because we've picked out great food, that we all can sit around and get to know each other, and there's a real comfort in that room. I find it hard for us to even juggle all of that sometimes when we're doing our live events, especially the one that we did by ourselves, because it was like Jocelyn couldn't participate in that because she was spending all of her time to do this. You know what I mean? It was just so overwhelming.
The thing about doing it yourself is if something goes wrong, you're out of the event. Like you can't interact with your people who are there because you're dealing with something that went wrong. Like for instance, when we were in San Diego, that very first one that we did, I had hired this, I think it was called like Task Rabbit or something. Basically, they did like little odd jobs and you could pay them. So I had paid them to go to a grocery store to pick up some snacks for the boat. Well, it was great. They brought the snacks on time to the wrong hotel. That's a different story. But anyway, that was my fault. But at any rate, so they bring the snacks and they had forgotten something. So I had to go out into the parking lot and say, okay, well, where's the crackers? Oh, I didn't know there were crackers. So I had to call the grocery store myself and be like, hey, there's supposed to be crackers. And they're like, oh, we forgot the crackers.
And like the best mistake that was made, which was actually hilarious when we did it ourselves. I want to stop here for a second and say, like, we do believe that you need to use an event coordinator, but you don't have to use an event coordinator. You can pull one of these off. It's always that time or money thing. And always you're not doing something you're an expert at. There's always going to be a problem. Because I understand that many of our listeners will not be able to just go out and pay for an event coordinator. So anybody listening, that's not the goal here. But like, these are just funny stories of when we did it ourselves and totally screwed everything up, because that's what we do sometimes. So Jocelyn plans out this thing. We had all the timing down perfect on our little itinerary.
And it went really well.
It did go really well. We ate at the Sheraton in San Diego.
No, we ate at a restaurant near
the Sheraton. And we thought, hey, well, there was a boat that we were going to take out on San Diego Bay, and it was parked at the Sheraton, right?
What we didn't know.
We did not realize, because we are not event coordinators and we do not live in San Diego, is there's two Sheratons and they were a mile apart.
Well, about a half mile.
So like, we realized this at the last minute. We're about to like miss the boat. And
so I'm dealing with this cracker situation. The people are going to the wrong hotel.
We're on this highway with this little bitty sidewalk. So like, all of our people can only walk 2 by 2 like little ducklings. And like, we have this big column of online entrepreneurs walking from one Sheraton to the other.
And if you know, and if you listen to this show often and you know anything about me, like, I'm dying
Jocelyn
inside
is dying
at this
inside.
moment.
It's like eating her alive.
Because I'm a perfectionist. I'm a control freak. Like, I did not get this right. And I'm thinking people hate me.
Right. My point is, little things can go wrong. Something's going wrong. And it's nice to have someone to fix it.
Yeah. And
something is going to go wrong. It just happens. I mean, I am a professional and it happens to me, but part of what my job is crisis management. So that's a big part of it. So in that moment, Jocelyn, were you saying never again? I'm never doing this
yes,
again.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
yes.
pretty much. I mean, I was really upset because I was just I wasn't worried about me so much as I was worried about their experience. I wanted people to have a good experience. Right. And I felt like because I screwed something up, they weren't going to have a good experience.
Right.
And that was just like crushing my soul.
And she's having to deal with it and not able to, like, you can pivot and you can make things fun. Like, you can make things happen. So instead of
talking to the attendees, I'm talking to the TaskRabbit people about crackers. Like, that was the thing. It was like, it was really hard. So let me just say though, I mean, with all that in mind, and yes, we did do it by ourselves and it turned out okay, but like working with you, since we have gone to working with you, it has been so much easier. I mean, we pretty much just show up, everything is done. Like, I have a nice, neat little list of everybody I'm supposed to talk to and what I'm supposed to expect and when I'm supposed to expect it. And it's, it's been a lot easier for me. I don't have to think about all this stuff. It doesn't take up my mental space.
We talk a lot about hiring VAs and outsourcing certain things. A lot of people say, well, this person costs this much, so I'm already in the hole. Instead of saying, what is my goal? What result do I want? How much do I think this will cost? And then taking that person's contract fee, you take that as a part of your planning.
It's cost of doing business.
It's not like you're putting, it's cost of doing business up front, but you can say like, okay, if this person's this much money, the event's going to cost this much money, all this adds up to $10,000. Well, then I need to get 20 people at $500 a piece to break even. So I think that's what people forget about.
A great way to look at it is that you build in your cost for those services. When you have someone that's handling the details of, okay, you have 6 vegetarians and 2 gluten-free people and, this, that, and the other.
Which does happen every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's a reality. And we have to pay this much for parking and you can only park 10 cars here and this, that, and the other. You don't need to be worried about that. You all need to be focused about your members and spending quality time with them versus kind of getting your head bogged down in all of these different logistics of just one day. So I think there's a huge value to that it frees up, like Jocelyn said, your mental space to be able to, just focus on what you're there for, which is your content and building your community and sharing yourself with your community. I mean, that's what they're there to do, is to interact with you so that you're not having to worry about, oh, so-and-so gets this meal and so-and-so doesn't get this. And that way you all can just really focus on on what you're there to do and do that well.
Let's talk about game day management too. I think that the hardest part for me is the day of the event. It feels like there's so many moving parts for someone who is going to do this on their own. And I would just want to preface, you can do this on your own, but like, you've got to keep it really simple. You've got to keep it basic when you're first learning this process. Don't rent yachts and stuff like we did on your first live event, because that makes things a lot harder. What is the game day management look like? What are your best 2 or 3 tips for people like day of the event? If you are running this yourself or your event coordinator is not on site with you, what are 2 or 3 things to keep in mind the day of the event to make sure things go smooth? And if there are fires, how to get them put out while still managing your people?
I think even before the day of the event is just preparation and communication. I think those are vital. So I prepare a very detailed itinerary for you all. And this is so if you're doing your own event, obviously you can do this yourself, but it's very detailed with contacts and phone numbers and just kind of a timeline of the day. You think the week before, okay, I've got this down. But when you're kind of in the throes of it, if you don't have it in front of you, in a crisis, oh, this is who I'm supposed to call, the caterer's late, so I think preparation in advance is critical. And then you have that, there with you that day to refer to. I think communication with your vendors is also, you cannot over communicate with them. I think just reiterating everything, timelines, and because you may be dealing with one person who's actually placing the order for the food and beverage, but it's going to be another person that's on site. So just making sure that you know who's going to be there, who you're dealing with, and just over communicating that and make sure that you're getting good feedback from them. And then if you don't have an event planner, you just have another person there. So like in a crisis, if something like that were to happen, like the caterer forgot crackers or whatever it is, that you have a person that you can kind of fall back to. You all are able to do that because you're a two-person team, So at least while Jocelyn was dealing with the crackers, you could be kind of entertaining your guests. So right. I think you've got to have a backup plan. You can plan and plan and plan and plan. And I'm a professional planner, but things still go wrong for me. So you have to have a plan B and you have to be able to react.
Yeah, and things are always going to happen. I mean, even at our last one that you did help us with, like we were supposed to have breakfast burritos. Well, I get there the next morning, there's no breakfast burritos,
right.
And again, it's just a communication thing.
But it was so smooth, though, because we knew exactly who to talk to. We had it all printed out. That's another thing I would say, too, is don't rely on your MacBook. Don't have everybody's phone and your number in your cell phone. Like, bring a notebook with an actual printed copy of everyone's phone number, all the contact people. Like you said, your plan A, your plan B. I love what you said there about having a second person. For people out there with communities, you could even give away one seat of your live event for free with the agreement that you're going to help with the live event. People do this all the time for conferences. They're your fire extinguisher, basically.
Fire extinguisher, I love that.
At Podcast Movement, they had a lot of people working booths for Podcast Movement. These were all people who got a free ticket to Podcast Movement if they would agree to work like the booth an hour a day. So that way they didn't have to pay for labor. But like, just bring someone, they get to come to the event, they get to enjoy the event. There's nothing different than their ticket. The only thing is, if TaskRabbit doesn't bring the crackers, they understand that they're going to do that so you can keep emceeing the event and they're going to help you solve that problem. So it's not like you have to hire someone or have a personal assistant in real life to do that. There's lots of ways, even in a DIY environment or on a budget, that you can get someone to help you.
And speaking of that, this just hit me when you were talking about that. You can also trade services with people when you're first starting out. We did this for our very first live event. We actually allowed someone to come for free because they were a photographer. And
that worked
we had
out
them
amazing.
Do photography and videography for our first event, which was amazing because we had that for the next few live events that we did.
We still use those images and videos for all of our marketing on our live events because he was so good. And he even gave us a photo shoot. Like with the day before the event, we went down to La Jolla Beach and we took pictures on the beach. We sat at a coffee shop. We have all these marketing images and things now. Just huge benefit even 2-3 years later, just because we said, hey, let's trade services. You come to our event. We will take your business to the next level. You get to do everything with us. You just have to do pictures and stuff for, 10-20% of the time to give us this stock footage.
That's a great approach. I love that. That way you're able to kind of use resources that are there. And that was a great trade-off. So that's perfect.
All right. This has been a great conversation. Let's sort of end here with some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're either planning their own live event or maybe just working with an event planner or just with planning live events in general. What are some big mistakes you see?
I think just not preparing enough in advance. I think people think, okay, I've got the food check, but just not kind of working through the logistics, I guess, because there are things that are in the universe that are going to impede you. There's going to be a roadblock or traffic or, something like that. And being able to communicate with your attendees and communicating in advance of the event to let people know just where to go, how to get there. I think there's a lot of assumptions that people make that, okay, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing.
So everybody else does.
Maybe right. Not necessarily communicating that because, just maybe not working through those logistics is probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make, that they just assume I've got all of this on paper. I've got my contracts. So, everything's going to go perfectly. But I think you kind of have to prepare for the unexpected. And if you've never done events before, you're not going to be familiar with that. So I think that's why it's critical too. If you have the means to do it, to outsource that and to have an event planner on staff that can, just kind of help you work through some of those things.
Anything can happen, especially in a major city. Like that's another thing too is like when you go to Chicago, New York, San Diego, LA, everything's going on all the time anyway. But like,
especially when you're from small town America.
Small town, yeah, right. But like we looked out the window and legit, there was a political protest marching down the street of like 1,000 people. Down the way down Michigan Avenue, which was like the main drag there. You can't prepare for that. No. You know what I'm saying? You don't know that's going to happen. But what you can do is say, okay, well, what if this parking lot is closed? Maybe it's because they're marching down the street. Maybe it's because there's construction you didn't anticipate. But if you have a backup in place, it doesn't matter why it happens. It doesn't matter if it's traffic, political protest, early morning, the dude didn't show up for work that's supposed to open the parking garage. It's so important to have all those backup plans in place because, like you said, you just don't know. Something's going to go wrong. And people do assume. You assume everything's going to go right. And
knowing the right questions to ask, too. I think that's something kind of, as a novice, you may not think to ask about parking or parking stamping or where do I get my parking validated or is there signage of how to get to the elevator if our room is down the hall. There's just a lot of details that go into it. And not to say that you can't do it, just to be aware that, just because you have it on paper and that's your plan, it's not necessarily going to go that way. You just kind of have to think through all of the process of the whole day.
I love that too. And that goes back to hiring expertise. We have seen everything that can go wrong. We have seen everything that can go right. We have seen it in dozens and dozens of niche markets. And that experience is why you hire people for things. It's why we hire people like to do our Infusionsoft, which is our customer service management system. This person has dozens and dozens of clients. They see the in and out of the system. They know things that we would never even think to ask. And that's why I think it's good to research it and don't just assume room check, food check, see you Saturday. You know what I'm saying?
And,
exactly.
It's like we were saying before, something is always going to go wrong. There's something that you're not going to anticipate. There's something that even your event planner can't anticipate. It's just the way that life is, and you have to just overcome and deal with it when it happens. But overall, I would say that working with you has been just, totally different than when I did it myself. I mean, it's so much better. I don't have to think about all this stuff all the time. I mean, we just pretty much put together like a skeleton plan, and then I know that you're going to take care of it. So, I mean, thanks for doing that for us. I mean, it's been awesome for me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And it's been great working with you guys. And I think once you get kind of through the nuts and bolts of it, we've gotten to a place where we can kind of take your all's events, like Shane said, put the fun in it. So you can have food and have a great place, but it's got to be you. It's got to be your personality and your branding so that when people walk away from it, they're like, wow, you've got to have great place, great food, but you've also got to kind of work in those details too. And I think that's something that an event planner also brings to the table. Sourcing out your swag. I mean, that takes time, to figure out where do you get the best rates for your, coffee cups
mugs,
and all that kind of stuff. Like that's something that you don't necessarily want to be spending your time to, but that's something that an event planner can do and kind of create these pieces that are unique to you and unique to your venue and that kind of resonate with people of like, wow, they thought of everything. And that's what you want people to walk away from.
I think that most people aim too big up front, whether they're starting an online business, having a live event. We rented the law office's penthouse suite and got a yacht in San Diego. That's not where you should start. If you're going to do something DIY, maybe it should be more like a meetup where you can still charge, you can still cover the cost for the event. It's just something smaller where you're not getting so in depth, where you can kind of get your feet wet a little bit. And then when you're ready to go something bigger, I would almost say you need to hire someone. If you're going to do a meetup, like, hey, I'm going to be in New York and all of you listen to my podcast, let's meet up here.
I think that's definitely a good way to start, though, is just doing some of these meetups. If you're not ready to kind of delve into the whole live event, I think that's a good place to start. But there is some pre-planning and some thought that needs to go into it if you want it to be successful and not end up standing around with no place to sit. I think you've got to.
That would be terrible. Can you imagine that? Hey guys, meet here. You charge $100 just to cover the cost, and then you show up and like legit the place like burnt down or like it's not there anymore.
This is totally what would happen. Like if I was not involved in this business.
If I planned this, I would totally just be like, yeah, man, I found this place. Did you call them? Nah, they're always open, right? I mean, we're gonna meet at In-N-Out Burger, man. You know what I mean? But
you got to do a little bit of planning. You got to be prepared for sure.
All right, Amber, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all this awesome information about live event planning. If somebody is thinking about hosting a live event or maybe even hiring a live event planner and they want more information about what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, my company is Divine Soiree, so they can find me at divine-soiree.com. My email is amber@divine-soiree.com. So just drop me a note. And like I said, I'm based in Lexington, but I plan events all over the country. So if you're thinking about diving into planning some live events, I'd love to chat with you. And then I think you all are going to host some of the information, how to contact me on your page as well. So
yeah, if you want to know how to spell soiree, you can go by today's show notes at fliplifestyle.com.
I don't know how to spell soiree, but I'm going to have one of my VAs look it up. So it will be spelled right once you get it on the page. You know what I mean? And also for everyone listening today, we are going to work with Amber and create a DIY live event checklist. We're actually going to show you a checklist that's going to be all of the things that were involved in planning our live events. And so you can head over to fliplifestyle.com, check out this episode's show notes, and you'll be able to download that 100% for free. That'll get your feet wet, let you see what it takes to create a live event, to do a live event, maybe even try one of your own. Or if you do hire an event coordinator, you will be able to work with them with greater information and be able to pull off an amazing live event that is going to help you grow your online business. And real quick, again, Amber, just wanted to thank you for being on the show today. I love it when I can bring the family onto the show. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks for having me. This has been great.
If you would like to join our Flip Your Life community, head over to fliplifestyle.com/flipyourlife, and we can show you how to join today.
It's now time to move into our Can't Miss Moments segment. These are moments that we were able to experience recently that we might have missed if we were still working at a normal 9-to-5 job. Today's Can't Miss Moment is going to the apple orchard with our daughter, Anna. This is her very first field trip ever. It was the kindergarten field trip, and we went out to an apple orchard and just got to pick some apples. We played with some friends, and I was really happy to be able to go to her trip to the apple orchard.
Yeah, this was a cool trip because it just kind of was a day of online business glory because we got up, we went in and got ready before school started, dropped the kids off. Jocelyn and I ran and got breakfast together. So we had this nice breakfast with just us. We drove, it was about an hour to get to the apple orchard. We drove and we met the buses there. So we went to the apple orchard ourselves, but Jocelyn drove. I got to check our forums and check Voxer for our private mastermind, serve our community. We got to get a little work done when we got there. And then we jumped out and met them right when the bus got there. Anna Jo was so happy to see us. Hung out with her all day, picked apples, and then I got to have a nice drive home where we got to talk about some things we had needed to plan for. And then by the time we got home, we just picked the kids right up off the bus and hit their activities in the afternoon. It was just such a good day, such a stress-free day, and such an opportunity to be able to hang out with our kids.
And again, we were one of the only moms and dads there.
Yep.
We get a lot of questions during those situations. People who don't really know us.
How are you
they're
both
like,
here? Like, what do you do?
What do you do?
Right.
And we get a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's always interesting to talk about. But it was a great day at the apple orchard, and I'm really thankful that we were able to be there.
Before we go, we like to close every one of our shows with a verse from the Bible. Today's verse comes from Proverbs chapter 10, verse 2. And the Bible says, "Tainted wealth has no lasting value." Keep that in mind while you're building your online business, guys. Always treat every customer with honesty and fairness. That's all the time we have for this week. As always, guys, thanks for listening to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. And until next time, get out there, take action, do whatever it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then.
Bye.